Mr. Chair, I believe we're streaming now.
You're live.
Beautiful, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, July 9th, and it is currently 10:03 a.m. And we are here today for our regularly scheduled Las Cruces Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Board meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I hope everyone does have the agenda in front of them that was sent out, as well as the minutes that were sent out as well from city staff. So first off, any conflict of interest, if you'll please raise your hand in the chat box, so that way we can get that on there. As I see none, it looks like we're going to go ahead and move on to acceptance of the agenda. The agenda was sent out for you, and there are a couple changes to this agenda format. As you'll see, we did put the purpose of the Las Cruces Economic Recovery Board that was given to us by the City Council at the top, so that way we can refer back to it as we're going on, as we're going through everything and having these discussions. But if there are any questions or anything to the agenda or any motions to accept the agenda, we can hear those now.
Debbie Moore, move to accept the agenda.
We have Mrs. Moore who moved to accept the agenda. Do I have a second?
This is Michael Harris. I'll second.
Hello, Mr. Michael. We have a movement and a second to accept the agenda as presented. Any discussion on the agenda as it is presented before us? Seeing none, Mr. Francisco, if you can do a roll call vote for us on that.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was on mute. This is on the motion to accept.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Okay. Mr. Chair, this is Griselda Martinez.
Griselda.
This is for a motion to approve the agenda as is. Ms. Brooke Montgomery.
I'm here. Sorry. What was that, Griselda? My phone's having issue hearing.
This is the for a motion to approve the agenda as provided.
Yay.
Debbie Moore.
Yes.
Doug Cohen.
Yay.
George Miller.
Yes.
Michael Harris.
Yes.
Ron Fitzherbert.
Yes.
Sharon Thomas. Sharon Thomas. Absent. Veronica Archuleta.
Yes.
And Chris Chaljo.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, this is Debbie Moore. I believe Ms. Thomas is on. She just couldn't get her sound on.
Oh, so it would just be a... Sharon, are you with us? Okay, I don't see her coming on, but motion does pass. The agenda is accepted as presented. Moving on, we do have two sets of minutes to approve that we were sent. I hope that you all received those minutes from city staff because they did come in. So we'll review minutes for the meeting that was held on June 25th. I would entertain a motion to accept it unless there's any changes that we have on those minutes.
Ron Fitzherbert, motion to accept.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzherbert. Okay, so we have a motion and a second from Mr. Harris to accept the minutes from the June 25th meeting as is. Any discussion on those minutes? If you'll raise your hand if there's any discussion on the minutes from the June 25th meeting. Seeing none, Mr. Francisco, if you can please do a roll call vote on the accepting of the minutes of June 25th.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me well? I was having troubles connecting to the internet. My apologies.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Excellent. This is on the motion to accept the minutes for June 22nd as presented. Mr. Michael Harris,
Yes.
Mr. George Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharon Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Brooke Montgomery,
Yay.
Ms. Veronica Archuleta,
Yes.
Ms. Ron Fitzherbert,
Yes.
Mr. Doug Cowan,
Yay.
Ms. Jane Bloom. Ms. Jane Bloom is absent. Ms. Jolie Martinez. Jolie Martinez is absent. Ms. Debbie Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
My vote's yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the minutes from the meeting on July 2nd, which was our last meeting that we met. If there are any changes to the minutes as presented before us, if not, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Michael Harris, I'll motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. We have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes as presented.
Ron Fitzherbert, second.
Mr. Fitzherbert seconded the motion to accept the minutes as presented for the July 2nd meeting. Any discussion on those minutes? As seeing, oh, there's Ms. Montgomery. As seeing none, Mr. Francisco, will you please do a roll call vote on the accepting of the minutes from the July 2nd meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is on the motion to accept the minutes for July 2nd. Mr. Michael, as presented, Mr. Michael Harris,
Yes.
Mr. George Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharon Thomas,
I recuse myself. I wasn't there.
recused. Ms. Brooke Montgomery,
Yay.
Ms. Veronica Archuleta,
Mr. Chair, I think I was absent on that meeting. So I refuse. I think I was absent.
recused.
I wasn't sure if it was that one. Yes.
Ms. Ron Fitzherbert,
Yes.
Mr. Doug Cowan,
Yay.
Ms. Jane Bloom, I think she's absent. Ms. Jolene Martinez, I think she's absent as well. Ms. Debbie Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful, thank you. Moving on to, we do have an action item on the agenda that was discussed at our last meeting, and that is on the New Mexico, the Las Cruces Save for the Las Cruces Promise, that we kind of went over a couple ideas with, and then also there was the timeline that we went over during our last meeting. Since this is an actionable item, we are going to be taking action today to send this to City Council for action through our city manager at this time. So I'm not sure, staff, do we have anything besides just the vote on presenting this to council? Or is that the only actionable item that we have on this?
Mr. Chair, this is Francisco Payares for the record. Unless there is any further discussion from material that has already been discussed on the previous meeting, I think it's ready to take it to vote.
Wonderful, thank you. So Mr. Harris, you do have your hand raised?
Yeah, I think that there was, I think at the previous meeting, we did ask for some more info from staff on it. Could go back to the minutes to be specific about that, but I do recall that there was some request for like a final draft or something before we voted on it.
Mr. Chair, this is Francisco Payares, Mr. Michael Harris. We did make the corrections that were proposed. We also adjusted for the, I think some of the comments that were in there were some adjustments as to how are we going to propose to make this kind of a grassroots campaign, and in which case Ms. Jimmy Rigman last instance, she mentioned that we would be incorporating social media instances. There was also a discussion on last time with regards to the, whether this was going to be sent via the utility bill of El Paso Electric, and Dr. Martinez last time answered that in order to make this a more swift process, we could just focus on the Las Cruces utilities. And that would also reach a very wide variety of individuals. So other than that, there were also some other minor changes, and those have been taken into account. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Mr. Harris, did that answer your question, or were you wanting?
Yeah, I think that satisfies me. Thank you.
Okay. So just to kind of review really quick, we did go over a 3-month timeline for implementing the promise, the Las Cruces Safe Promise. Pardon me, if you all remember that. So at this point in time, we could entertain a motion to present this to City Council through our city manager. And go from there, and then we could have discussion if there was any more questions or concerns about what this is exactly.
Mr. Chair, Debbie Moore. I move to approve the timetable for the Las Cruces Safe Promise program and move it forward to the City Council in the appropriate channels.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. We do have a motion to accept or to bring the actionable item to City Council. Do I have a second?
It's Michael Harris, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I have a motion and a second to bring this actionable item to City Council. Any discussion on what we are doing right now on the Las Cruces Safe Promise?
Yes, this is Sharon Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Thomas.
Can we see the final draft with where they've made the corrections and changes?
I don't see why not. Let me see if that was in my email.
Mr. Chair, this is Francisco Payares. Would you like me to share the screen?
Yes, Francisco, that would be great. And if you can just go over a brief rundown of the changes that were made, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Griselda Martinez for the record. Also, the timeline revised and the draft logos were sent via email last night as well.
Wonderful, thank you. If we could also have those draft logos presented, that way we can put that in there as well to send out.
Mr. Chair, please let me know if you are able to see my.
Yes, sir. You're
Yes,
good to go.
thank you. Excellent. So some of the changes that were carried are, first of all, There was an inclusion of a mention that was requested as well. There was also a change to include the New Mexico Southern Foundation as part of the outreach efforts that we're going to be carrying. So as we were mentioning, the utilities from the customers from the city of Las Cruces are going to be accompanied for the 44,000. That's another one of the changes that was mentioned as well. The incorporation of the social media talking points right here that was also mentioned to try to make this as much of a grassroots campaign, and having some of these partners share this promise once it is released. It was also incorporated as well. And then it has been adjusted to accompany the 3-month process as it was mentioned on the last meeting as well. I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and then can we also take a look at the logos that were presented as well?
By all means.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Martinez.
This is Griselda Martinez for the record. Another change that was incorporated in month 1 is to ensure that this is a cross reference effort with the New Mexico Certified Program, which is also included in the timeline.
Wonderful, thank you for that clarification.
And Mr. Chair, please let me know if you're able to see the pictures of the logos for the proposed logos. That's one, which is with the black and white backgrounds, colors. The second one is this one. Just let me know if you're able to see it and if it changed on your screen as well. This one is with a blue color, kind of a ring, as well as a yellow sun right in the background of the mountains.
This is Michael Harris. I do not see the blue.
Okay, let me stop sharing and share the other one. Let me reshare. Let's see. Mr. Harris, please let me know if you're able to see the blue.
Yeah, I see the blue now.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. This is the other one. And finally, the other one is this one, which is more of a stronger color in the background on the blue. It's just a slight variation of the past one. So we have those 3.
Wonderful, thank you for presenting those. I personally love the one with the blue and the sun for sure. Mr. Cohen, you do have your hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get my video on here. I've just got a kind of a question. I'm not sure it can be answered, except I'm not sure how effectual this campaign is at this point. This was supposed to be a grassroots program to encourage a volunteer type mechanism where we had consumer and business working together, kind of going towards a safe promise together. But now there's a mandate with threats of fines and everything else. I'm not sure how effectual something like this. There's certainly a certain amount of cost at this point for this. What's the feasibility of this grassroots now even being effectual?
Thank you for your comment. I think that's a valid concern for the board to answer as well, because we're all in this together. But I'll go ahead and give 2 cents, and then Mr. Harris and Ms. Martinez will go ahead and get with you as well. I think that this is a 3-month plan. We're not going to be in the same position for the next 3 months, hopefully. But I think that it's still an amazing opportunity to voice our concerns and what we're willing to do and what we think this promise can be for Las Cruces. And I think that, you know, over the implementation of the next 3 months, we're going to see a lot of different changes, as this is all very fluid right now. So I think it's definitely going to be a very well executed and utilized program. Maybe not right this moment with the current enforcements, but in the near future, I definitely think this is going to be a very well received part of our economic recovery. Ms. Martinez, we'll go with you, and then Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Cohen, for that question. From our perspective, I think this is even more needed now than before, because we see the opportunity to continue to educate the public and the businesses on what is being required. So it's an opportunity for us to lower the burden from the code enforcement perspective and educate the population at large of the benefits of why this is important for all of us to come together and follow the guidelines. That would be the value that I see from this campaign and other efforts that are being done throughout the city. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Harris.
Yeah, I'll pretty much echo those sentiments. This is a long-term, this, as proposed, it's got a 3-month timeline. It's not going to help us, in a month. But the way that things are going, it's going to be necessary, certainly in 4, 5, 6 months for everyone to be on board with this. And, also to emphasize that there's nothing that we can do right this second that's going to stop the cases from increasing tomorrow. Those numbers are already set in stone. So all this stuff is really going to the future. And I think it's worthwhile, and it's a good message, bring everyone together around it. That's all.
I appreciate that, Mr. Harris, and I definitely agree with you that this is going to be the long haul kind of movement that we're going into. Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make it clear, this board was to help stimulate or recover the economy, not to do any kind of enforcement of statutes and ordinances that the city implements. We're supposed to be trying to recover the economy within those guidelines that they have. So that's just my concern. Right now, I know that there's a lot of businesses that are very frustrated because now they are being forced to be in the policing mode. They're the ones getting threatened with fines. And that's putting employees in a very dangerous spot where they're having to confront people that may not be kind in their response. And then what do? And it's the business owner that is getting threatened. So again, I'm just a little concerned that we're trying to implement something, and we were trying to do it to where it was a voluntary thing. People will get enthused about it. Hey, let me jump on board on this. Even those that might have been reluctant initially, but saying, hey, you know what, if it'll help my business, it'll help reassure people, yeah, I'm on board for this. And now there's a twisting of the arm. And I know there's a sentiment out there. I've talked to a lot of folks. They're not very happy. And so I think it's going to be a challenge to get them to jump on board on this on a voluntary measure.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Duly noted. Ms. Debbie Moore.
Yes, I disagree with Mr. Cohen in the fact that I think this Safe Promise is an effort to unite the community in a grassroots effort. I too, obviously being from the Chamber of Commerce, have heard concerns over the mandate and how we proceed. I do not think the Safe Promise campaign and the mandates are intertwined specifically. I do believe that we all want a united community. That would be all aspects, both the individual community, the citizens at large, as well as the business community, the faith-based community, the nonprofit community, all of us looking to communicate that we want to be safe. I believe this is fluid, but I believe the commitment to be a safe community is on the forefront of everybody. The businesses want to be safe. The community wants to be safe. I think this is a great program. Obviously, I'm behind it. I support it totally. And I think there's just really strength in commitment, strength in numbers, and a way to really join our community together. As you know, one of the slogans of the chamber is Las Cruces strong. I think Las Cruces is strong and we will get through this. But I think this is an effort, a grassroots effort to get together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Moore. Ms. Montgomery, you do have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
I agree with Debbie Moore, Brooke Montgomery for the record. I think that although mandates are going to happen and they'll be fluid and those come from our elected officials, this is something where we're showing our customers and our clients that we're keeping our businesses clean and promoting the safety of our community. As long as when we present this, it's not presented as a mandate, but more of you're welcome to come into our businesses. We assure your safety. We're encouraging our businesses to be open in a safe manner. So I'm along the lines with Debbie Moore.
Thank you for that, Ms. Montgomery. And I would like to echo that again. I really do think that we're not an enforcement board at all. I don't think we're enforcing anything. This is a voluntary program, and it's a program that shows a vested interest that's duly uniting Las Cruces, and even Doniana is going to get involved all over the place. Messia is going to take it up and everything. So that's definitely something that we can look at. Miss Thomas is raising her hand. Mrs. Thomas, if you can please abstain from using the chat feature due to Open Meetings Act. We're not using that just because anyone on YouTube cannot see it. So please abstain from using that. But go ahead, Thomas. Thank you.
I just want to say that we're not asking the council to do this as any more than a resolution, right? We're not asking them to do it as an ordinance. So it's not required.
That is correct. This is not a requirement. This is a program through the economic side of things that is just, we had a presentation in the last meeting, which you were unfortunately not able to make it to. And we kind of went through, and we can email some links to as to what this was looking like, but it's just a promise. It's a verbal promise that also goes over the New Mexico Safe Certified program as well. That is a voluntary program for any citizen, any business owner, anyone to sign up and say, yes, I promise to wear a mask and pretend or act like, or I promise to be safe. With the idea of I might already have COVID, go out, wear a mask, use hand sanitizer, wash your hands, be respectful, be kind, and all these things. So it's more of a voluntary thing that I will definitely be taking part of as my business because it's good ethics is what I think it is.
But I'm just pointing out that the council has two choices to pass it as a resolution or as an ordinance. And so we're not asking them to pass it as an ordinance that would require anything. We're only asking them to pass it as a resolution. So
I don't believe that's true, but I know that our staff are now raising their hands. So Griselda or Francisco, if you'd like to answer that question better for us.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Thomas, just summarizing also part of the conversation from last week, because this is an administrative process. What will happen is once this board votes on this action item, it will go from the chair to city manager. City manager can, and we have already spoken to him, Mr. David Maestas, to direct staff to move into implementation, and city manager will inform city council. So there is no actual city council action required, which would allow us to streamline the process as well.
hey, thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Ms. Martinez. Does that help, Ms. Thomas, answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, you do have your hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is Michael Harris. So I guess if there's any amendments, I don't know if this would actually be an amendment or just a suggestion that would come out of this discussion that we've had. I think it is that if anything, we should try and speed up deployment of it. You know, there are the requirements, and if we want people to get on board voluntarily, then maybe 3 months from now is a little late, and we should just try and move as fast as possible on it. That's all. Thank you.
I echo those same concerns, sir. With that being said, if there's no other discussion, as no one's really raising their hand right now, I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Francisco if we can go ahead and do a roll call vote, since we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Mr. Chair, just to double check, who was the second on the motion from Ms. Debbie Moore?
I believe it was Mr. Harris.
Okay.
I believe. Yes. Okay. He should have said yes.
Thank you, Mr. This is on the motion to take Las Cruces Safe Promise as the program as it has been presented today with the adjustments as a suggestion for the City Council to implement via the proper channels, if I'm using Ms. Moore's words correctly. Mr. Michael Harris?
Yes.
Mr. George Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Sharon Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Brooke Montgomery?
Yay.
Ms. Veronica Archuleta?
Yes.
Ms. Ron Fitzherbert?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Ron Fitzherbert. Mr. Doug Cowan?
Yes.
Ms. Jane Bloom? She's absent. Ms. Jolene Martinez? She's absent. Ms. Debbie Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Francisco. So this will be an actionable item that we are taking to the city manager to take to city council. So first steps, very exciting. Moving on, we do have some discussions before us today. One is New Mexico Workforce Connections resource for workers during COVID-19. And then after that, we will be moving into the Arrowhead presentation by Ms. Montgomery. So if we can go ahead and have the New Mexico Workforce Connections resource presentation, that would be great.
Mr. Chair, this is Francisco Payares. I'd like to introduce Ms. Darlene Lopez to the conversation. She's the person in charge of the one-stop shop at New Mexico Workforce Connections in Las Cruces. Darlene?
Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry I don't have like a real presentation, but I have information. So as Francisco said, I'm Darlene Lopez, and I'm the one-stop operator for the New Mexico Workforce Connection offices. And basically what that is the operations manager, and I kind of oversee various elements of what's going on at each of the workforce centers across the Southwest region, including Doña Ana County. And so I just kind of want to go over the gist of what we've been working on and where we're at right now as far as our services towards both employers and individuals, because we do serve both. As I'm sure a lot of you know, Doña Ana County, including Sunland Park, in the month of June, we saw 13,327 unemployment claims. In the month of June, we're seeing anywhere between 100 and 300 calls coming into the centers, each center. So we're talking about, quite a bit, thousands of calls coming in regionally, which is a lot for some of our offices, because some of our offices are very small. We have an office in Tier C, Socorro, Sunland Park, Las Cruces, Deming, Silver City, and then we have a small satellite office that's just for youth in Lordsburg. So that one office only has one person. So to receive 100 phone calls in a week on top of everything else you're trying to do, especially when the issues that you're being presented with are kind of novel, they're tricky, they're kind of scary questions to answer because there's so much new information, and you definitely don't want to be caught in a situation where you give it wrong information. The reason why unemployment claims are no longer done in our offices, and this took place a long time ago, like 20 years ago, they stopped processing unemployment claims in the local workforce centers so that they could avoid that situation. So then the only people that are actually processing claims are in Central, and this is a group of individuals that are highly trained in understanding the laws. You know, at the local level, we help with all sorts of other services, and we do help individuals understand their notifications, and we help them along with their claim and recertifications as while they're doing their job search. But they cannot advise whether or not a claim is gonna go through. They cannot actually process a claim, and that is for the protection of the staff member, because that is considered legal advisement to assist somebody with an unemployment claim. So to even go as far to say, oh yeah, that's a claim, you should qualify. That right there could land somebody in a lot of trouble, because if they are wrong, this individual's livelihood was hinged on what you said to them. So that's the reason why that's been removed. But since COVID, our offices actually took probably I want to say like 90% of the staff and move them over to the UI side. So we were left with kind of a skeleton crew in our offices for the other services. We didn't stop anything. On March 16th, we did go to remote services. So we still had some of our offices having staff reporting to them, but they were no public access at that point. We're still no public access right now, unless there's an exception. We are seeing individuals who need testing, whether it be for a job, because we do work keys and prove it and things like that, that especially the city uses, LCPD uses. And so we don't want to stand in the way of that. So we are still doing that, and of course, taking abundance of precaution. But other than that, we are trying to help individuals virtually. But, you know, because of the fact that we do have some individuals coming into our offices, because we're trying to not create more barriers than already exist. We have been still continuing to work on the virtual pieces. We understand we have individuals that don't have access to the technology and to the internet, and that's the reason why we have made exceptions to allowing individuals to come into our offices. But as you can imagine, as we see the fluctuations with the unemployment claims, we see fluctuations in the offices. And now we have these individuals that were transferred over to the other side. They're actually on the other side of a 1-800 number. And so they're no longer assisting at the local level. So even then, we were able to provide, I think, almost 9,000 individual customer services in the month of, I think that was May. So we proved to ourselves that we could be really effective, even virtually. And so that was really good to see, because we knew that we needed to work on helping the more remote areas of our community. And we were like, how do we do it? How do we do it? Just couldn't envision it. And then this situation just kind of thrusted us into a position where we just had to figure it out. And now we know we can do it. So we've been working very closely with the economic development here in the city of Las Cruces, but as well with the economic development in the other areas, to just start seeing and understanding each other so that we can work on really braiding our resources so that we can better serve the community, not only the businesses, but the individuals ultimately, because when we're developing strong employment opportunities, we're helping the individuals as well. And so in those collaborations, we've actually did do a virtual job fair with along with the city of Las Cruces and one of a local business. And then we just executed one yesterday in the city of Deming with a local employer there and their economic development. So it's been a really key focus for workforce to start just linking arms with economic development across the region and really start co-branding and making this new system, this hybrid system that is built to support business. and that we can leverage our different types of resources to be able to help them move forward in recovery and coming back. And even if that means retooling and changing, what it is that they're providing, we'll be here to be able to change with them as the environment changes. We also have been working on potentially co-locating. We've been working with Francisco and Griselda on looking at different areas that the city of Las Cruces may be able to allow for us to come in and have staff in different areas throughout the city. So we're still working on that. Obviously, with the rising cases, we don't know what that looks like. As of right now, we're looking to reevaluate the situation on June 15th with our partners as far as when we want to reopen. But as of right now, the soonest that we see anything changing at all with our offices is maybe August 1st, depending on what's going on. We may move towards doing more by appointment still, but like more versatile services, not strictly testing. But as we move forward, whenever we get to move forward, we know that we're going to still have that social distancing requirement. And so we'll be limited to how many people we can serve, because the people come to our offices to use our resource area. We have computers, we have a fax machine, we have a printer, a copy machine, telephones. This is the way that people come in and file for their unemployment and do other things, do their job search. So we've really taken a huge resource away from them by not allowing them to come into our offices and do that. So when we do come to the point where we can, we want to be able to stretch out a little bit. And so it's really nice that, the city is willing to work with us, and we're working together to look at some different spaces that we can kind of expand our resource space, so that, even if we do have to have social distancing, we can help more people and at any given time. So, as we take cues from the governor on which direction we're moving in, and we monitor the situation, we'll be working more towards that. And we're working on that same type of thing with economic development and the other parts of the region as well. We have recently had several meetings with different elements of the film industry. Different individuals, some from NMSU, some from the Film Las Cruces board, and different aspects of it with our partners that do offer training programs and tuition assistance, on-the-job training. And just recently, as of last month, the board did agree to invest resources. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, but they have agreed that this is an industry that we want to support. So that's one other thing that we're trying to see how in this COVID world, we can reasonably assist them in keeping the industry growing in the direction that it was before COVID, and also building some hybrid types of certifications and programs, and to be able to support that industry, but also ensure that we have long-term employability for the individual. So that's another thing that we've been working on. I recorded a webinar last month with the Bridge of Southern New Mexico, and it's on the New Mexico True Talent. It's basically where I went over the resources and that we have available. And we put up on the screen our New Mexico Workforce Connection website, or the state.nm jobs.state.nm.us website, where an individual would register to do job search, and also would need to register if they're going to file for unemployment. And so we kind of went through some of the basics of what they could expect and what the value is in doing that. So that's actually on there, that's available for the public. So if they need some assistance with trying to figure out how to get on there, they can watch that video, and I kind of go through the steps. We've been working on virtual workshops. So the state has developed a series of virtual workshops for resume writing, interview skills, you name it. Navigating the virtual job search world, where some individuals have been working the same job for 25 years. They don't know this new platform, this new layout is very different. And so the state is actually doing those, and we're looking to bring that to our local areas once they've all been approved. And then you'll be able to find those on our Employ NM website, and individuals will be able to go and look at those, either watch live ones or go back and look at old ones that were recorded. And then we're also in the process right now of working on some workshops and toolkits for employers. These are going to be, they'll be able to find different types of postings from CDC and WHO, They'll be able to find, the latest updates on COVID. They'll be able to, see some videos and printouts, booklets, things like that for proper sanitation, phasing reopen, and things of that nature, and even, PUA and different types of state assistance. And so we're working on building that toolkit that'll be available specifically for employers. And then the last thing is our awareness campaign. We are the first in our state. We are the first out of many states to ever launch an actual professionally driven awareness campaign. So this is very novel, not only for the state as a whole, but this is novel for many, many states. The company that I work for, they have just my supervisor alone has 14 projects all across the United States. And this is the only project that's doing it. So that's how new it is. Typically, they don't do that because there's concern around advertisement along with using federal dollars. But this is a little bit different. It's awareness, because what we're trying to do is make sure that people know we're here and they know what we are, that we're not just unemployment, that we help with employment services. We have services available to employers. We can offer up to 75% for 6 months while somebody's in the training phase. That's reimbursable directly to the employer, and they can do whatever they want with that money. A lot of people don't know we do that. We have tuition assistance. We can help an individual go back to school or start their college career, or even maybe just get a technical certificate. We can assist with that. We have dollars for that. We have supportive services for childcare, transportation. So we have so much more to offer, and we know that individuals are very, it's the same across the United States. Everybody thinks of workforce as unemployment. That's the only capacity they know us in. So it was really important for us to launch this. So this just started in April. And what we have so far is, I personally recorded some YouTube commercials, so I apologize in advance. I have 3 different ones, one for youth, one for employment services, and the other one was just kind of a combination of just general services or universal services that the state offers. So I will be annoying people on YouTube when you're like trying to hit skip and it just won't stop. That's going to be me here soon. We have billboards that are underway. We have radio commercials in the different areas all over the region. We're on the newspapers all in the different areas in the region. We have mail outs that we're working on that will be sent directly to people's homes for those individuals that may not have access to technology. We're on various forms of social media and LinkedIn. And so we're hoping that we'll really start saturating the community with information so that they really start to get it in their heads that this is not just unemployment. I can actually go there for help to get a job. I can go there if I want to go to college and I maxed out my my financial aid, whatever it may be. So I know that there's so much that we do, and I hope that I can come back periodically and maybe go into more detail on just particular pieces so that I can really start helping you guys understand the meat of what we do. I know that was a lot of information, but I will stand for questions.
Thank you so much for that amazing verbal presentation. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Lopez? Okay, Mr. Harris, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. This is Michael Harris. Great presentation, thank you. One question that I have had come up like within friends and people I know is resources for independent contractors or people who didn't have like a traditional job, W-2 style job before the pandemic. And a lot of them were having problems with getting unemployment, knowing that they qualified, or even just knowing that there were programs out there to help them. So have you seen a big uptake in claims from independent contractors, and what are you doing to kind of support them?
Yes, absolutely. So the pandemic unemployment assistance program came out a little bit later after the addition that first CARE Act package came through. So it took a little more time for them to tweak that piece. So it didn't. I don't think it became live until maybe like the early part of May, I want to say. So it took a while. Ultimately what that is it's a separate fund that works like unemployment, but it's not. It's CARE money, it's CARE Act money. But that's specifically for those individuals that traditionally wouldn't qualify. They wouldn't be able to just go on and qualify. So technically what they would do is they would actually go on to apply for traditional unemployment insurance, and they would get denied. It would say you don't qualify for it. And then ultimately when that happens, the application for the pandemic unemployment assurance program would pop up, and it would say, okay, you can now apply for this. So they actually do have to go through the process of not qualifying for traditional unemployment. Then they can apply at that time. Then they'll ask them, were you impacted by COVID? And they say yes. And then that same process would take place where it would be reviewed. They would do their certifications for job search. And ultimately they would get the same type of financial assistance. Now, what they've done to help with awareness is they have put out an abundance of YouTube videos, how-tos, explaining it. Our cabinet secretary, Bill McCamley, has personally done a bunch of them. So DWS, the Department of Workforce Solutions, actually has a YouTube channel where if you just looked up their channel, you would find endless YouTube videos, some of them, just explaining certain things on what it means, going through some definitions, and some of them being like where it's a screen share of the actual application and going through it step by step. So that's kind of been our most effective way, is using social media and YouTube to inform the public on how to do it and who qualifies. And ultimately, we encourage everyone to try, because there's a lot of adjudication taking place, that some individuals that may get hung up normally under normal circumstances would be pushed through and would qualify during COVID.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
You got it.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, you have your hand up next, sir.
Thank you, George Miller. Good presentation. I like your, especially that you're working with the economic development part of the city, and that you're partnering with them. That's a huge step, I think. And I like the other programs that you've presented for people, like some of the services you're giving to especially the people to help them to be employed. My question is, how are you, there'll be a group of people probably that were employed before that now will not be. How are you retraining people? Are you working with economic development to create new kinds of jobs and new industries? And the big question, how are we using this this crisis time to really reinvent our economic growth model? I think, are you working with that? Like, say, example, Black Lives Matter, that some of the demands and some of the equity issues from that, or for the poor people from the Hispanic perspective, or disenfranchised people, are we doing anything specially to help those groups like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So actually, the state board meeting was happening this morning, so I got to hear a little bit before I jumped on this call, and that was exactly some of the stuff that they were talking about. We did actually go out for a federal grant for what they call dislocated workers, basically individuals that have been displaced from their work. And what basically at the state level and at the local level, we have the ability to develop a plan for how we're going to use that money. And the model that our state is really pushing for is to look at those individuals that are going to be most highly impacted, which will be females, and it will be individuals of color. And so they are focusing on using those dollars to specifically support entrepreneurism in those specific areas, those demographic areas. And so locally, we're looking to follow suit. There's also specific monies that came from some of that act, from that package that was targeted towards those individuals in early release. So those individuals that would, were non-violent crimes that would be released early, we wanted to make sure that we started developing a plan early on so that we could capture them as soon as they were released and start getting them prepared to get into the workforce and start being productive as soon as possible. We are working with the local board. We are working with the state. We're working with the partners from the different programs to see about braiding the funding together. So one of the things that we're doing, because we know we're going to need more teachers, we already had a teacher shortage. And now with the way that they're having to break down the class sizes, we need even more. And so we're working with a program called LEAP and the Alternative Licensure Program. And we're assisting individuals who normally probably wouldn't qualify, probably couldn't afford it, probably wouldn't be able to do it, to work through a hybrid program to get them into their, level 1 licensure, I think it is. And so there are various things that we're working on. They're still in their infant phases for some of those things. But I think that we're going to be moving at a very quick pace to make sure that we start spending those dollars on the folks who need it the most right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. I appreciate all the information that you've shared. I'm Doug Cowan, for the record. Now that the PPP money is running out, the program that you mentioned for independent contractors, you tended to talk about that in the past tense. Is it still active? In other words, those that were able to remain on payrolls during the PPP period, and now that that's expiring, and so some businesses are cutting some of their folks loose, are those programs still valid and available for both contract labor and W-2 labor?
Yes, so the pandemic unemployment is still available. People can still apply for that. I believe, that there's going to be some updates with the next package that rolls out as to how we will proceed with supporting individuals. But what we do know, we do have funding for, particularly, well, I don't know, I wouldn't say particularly, but for the employer. For instance, the program that I was talking about, the on-the-job training program, this can pay for an individual, let's say, either they need to step up, they are working at a certain level, and you have another position that opens up because of COVID. Maybe you have a new demand on your business, or maybe you just had an individual because of health issues had to resign and could not return. Even if it's an upgrade, so it could be an individual that's already working for you, but you want to move them up and there's a skill gap there. The program that we have qualifies for both that and a new staff member, where we can compensate, reimburse the employer for up to 75% of that individual's wages for 6 months while they're training. And ultimately, that's money back in the employer's pocket that they can do whatever they want with. We don't have any stipulations around how they spend that money, how they reinvest it. You can do up to 50% of your staff on that program. So that could be significant for an employer that maybe shut down previously, and now they're reopening and they're having to bring new staff on. That program not only creates a huge opportunity where it's thousands and thousands of dollars coming back into the employer's pocket, and there's really no loss there. But it's also opportunities for individuals, because perhaps they wouldn't have been considered otherwise, because they do have a skill gap. And so maybe they would have not considered that individual because they don't really want to have to invest in someone who needs training still. But with this program, it's an incentive for an employer to choose that individual and go ahead and invest in them and developing them, because now there's an incentive behind it. So that program is still available. There's plenty of money in that program still right now. So that's kind of another program that we know for a fact has absolutely no negative side effects. Using this program, you're not going to ever have to pay that money back. No one's ever going to come after you for that. And we know that for a fact because it's a program that we've had for years. So that's something else that they can look at as well as an alternative.
Thank you for that. I do have a follow-up question with that as well. Is that for only current employees that you may have, or is that for bringing in new employees as well?
It's both. Yeah, the only thing it is, there is a difference. There is one caveat. It can't be the most entry-level position. So basically what this is supposed to be putting people in sustainable wages. So what we want is for them to have the potential for growth, sustainability, and that they can sustain themselves on this income. So because of the income limits, there's waivers. We can work with employers based, especially if it's a smaller employer. We have more flexibility with small employers than with the larger employers because we're trying to help small business. So if it's a small business that says, hey, you know what, I don't quite have enough to meet that, $14 an hour, but I can do 12 or I can do 13 or whatever. We can go out for waivers if it's a small business to help them out, but we do want to see them be in a at least a mid-range position, and ultimately be at a sustainable wage, a self-sustaining wage.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Do we have any other questions or comments for Mrs. Lopez? I don't see anyone, but I truly do appreciate you coming here today and educating us, because I learned a lot today. I don't know about everyone else, but for that, I really do appreciate it for taking the time out of your day.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
You too.
Next on the agenda today, we have Ms. Montgomery with the Arrowhead presentation. Ms. Montgomery, if you want to go ahead, and do you have someone else on here with you right now, actually? There we go. Okay, perfect.
Yes, Kramer Whittingham and I work with the Arrowhead Center, and so we'll jointly present this. Let me figure out sharing the screen. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So again, Dr. Kramer Whittingham and I work with the Arrowhead Center, and this will be a kind of short slideshow of all the wonderful things that we do for the economy. So I'll start with the purpose of the Arrowhead Center, and our purpose is to support the mission of NMSU through enhancement of entrepreneurship and innovation, also creating economic opportunity, including community-based economic development through the state of New Mexico. We're a land grant and a space grant institution, so we actually do reach beyond the city for our services. And you can see here we do business creation and growth, and this is kind of a visual of what I just said, intellectual property and commercialization. Like many universities, we have our tech transfer office, which is our office that works with the patents and the novel creative research that our scientists and engineers and faculty and grad students have developed. And hopefully through that tech transfer office, we can bring those innovations to commercialization. We also have education and training, and we have public-private partnerships, and some of the future slides upcoming slides will go over that. So for our programs and initiatives, we have first our student success and social mobility. So these are based off the LEADS 2025 goals of NMSU. And we've been doing various student success and social mobility efforts since 2005. In 2011-12, Kramer actually was the one who started Studio G, which is our student business accelerator. And we also have what we Innovation Junior and Innovation, where we reach best practice curriculum for kids that are starting even as young as pre-K to learn about businesses and business plans and prototyping, and they get to develop stuff and build it in hands-on learning and show how they would market. So we have a whole curriculum for InnoVenture. We access schools in Las Cruces public schools and across the whole state with that as well. And research and creativity. So resources and support for NMSU research and creators. I touched on that a little bit. This one is where we support, like we have programs called Launch, where we take the patents and we try to have students who might be interested or business owners who might be interested in NMSU patents, who may want to launch it and commercialize it into a business. So we promote that research and creativity, and we promote connecting that for economic development for our community. Then extension and outreach, supporting NMSU's outreach and economic development goals. So we partner, we have strategic partners in Las Cruces, in Doñana County, and again, across the state and actually outside the state. And I'll go into a little bit more of that later. And then leads, this is for the goal 4 on our leads. NMSU leads is robust system, alternative funding sources, organizational efficiency. This really, our focus is on social mobility and how we can reach a diverse population and make sure that they are also able to build their own businesses or take their technology or even non-tech businesses to the market. We have quite an array of resources out there. One of them is our advisory network. We actually have about 50 professionals in our community who give up and volunteer 30-minute advising sessions. We have a calendar that our clients can access on their own and meet with those advisors to learn about starting up their business. We have, for example, 3 patent attorneys that give up 30-minute consultations for free. We have several accountants in the state who will sit down and talk about things like, how do you sell online? What does that mean for taxes? What kind of licenses do you need? How do you register the license? How do you register your business with the Secretary of State? So we find out where the client is. A lot of times they are students. We have community members go through our community programs, and we find out where they are and exactly what they need, and we connect them to these advisors and resources and funding opportunities. So we match them with different funding opportunities that might be grants, they might be investors, or they might just be like foundations or federal grants or from the state of New Mexico. I'll go to the next one. Here's our beautiful state. So this is our reach. Again, like I said, we're a land grant institution and a space grant institution. We have a huge amount of resources in New Mexico, even though we see, in the news, some people say otherwise. We have all this great resources for businesses and our students at NMSU and our students everywhere. We have national labs and we have universities that have different capabilities. And when someone comes to us, we are able to connect them to different networks or partners that we've made. And so I'll show you these dots that we have. So the business accelerator dots, that's like our biz sprints, which I'll go into, and the sprint that Griselda and Dave Maestas just partnered with our head center for Las Cruces. So we have sprints that are usually 5 weeks long. I'm going to jump ahead if I say too much, but they go into the needs of the business and doing generally product market and value proposition, product market fit and value proposition. So those kind of light bluish dots are where we've reached businesses or people who want to start businesses to train them. And then if you get to the orange dot, that is our K through 12, which is our InnoVenture. So that's where we go into classrooms and we teach them about business and entrepreneurship. We also have after school programs where they can compete in pitch competitions and build prototypes, where they do this every week. And at the end of the year, the middle schools compete and the high schools compete, and all of you can be judges when they compete. And they do it virtually now, but they used to come to NMSU to do it. And then we also have summer camps. So we used to have them do a week-long summer camp, and they would sell at their local farmers market. Now we're doing, last I checked, it was like 126 kids are in our virtual summer camp right now, developing their business plans. They may have to sell online, but maybe they can still go to the market, I'm not sure. And then we have university student entrepreneurship. Kramer and I work very strongly with this. So if my presentation leans towards it, that's what we do every day, and we love it. So what we do is we connect students with all of these resources, online training to be able to start their own businesses. And again, they can take patents that are patented at the university and see if they want to commercialize that, or they can make their own patents. Or it could be a business that's not tech at all. They can, we have all kinds of businesses. They might do remote teaching. Some of them are doing that. They may actually like make bridal gowns and cook. And so we just have all kinds of business ideas, and they really enjoy it. So those kind of darker blue dots are the universities that we're located at. So we, although main campus at MSU is where we started this, we actually reached 18 campuses across the state, and we have a formal partnership with UTEP, which started in February, and they're doing great. So we are just so close to UTEP that we can share our resources with them. So some of them you can see in Santa Fe. We have Santa Fe Community College. We're actually working out a partnership with IAIA, the Institute of American Indian Arts. We have UNM on there, New Mexico Tech, we have Silver City, we have WNMU, we have Eastern New Mexico, we have all the NMSU branches. So we also have Navajo Tech, and we have just a whole lot of universities that we partner with. What this means is that we can serve students at all of them. We usually have a faculty, and we have a student that works there who is the point of contact. And one really great resource for this partnership that we have that we love is that when a student comes in with a need, we're able to find it at one of our partner schools if we don't actually have it here. For example, here we can do prototyping at the engineering department, but the Keck Center has this, at UTEP has a massive 3D printing center where they can print in metal and plastic and use circuit boards. And so if somebody wants to build something that is circuits, we can connect them with UTEP. Navajo Tech University has an advanced manufacturing facility that was funded by the Department of Energy. And so if they need rapid prototyping, we can connect with them and get rapid prototyping. So we just have so many resources by this partnership, and we love partnering with each other. We're not competitive. Then economic-based studies, we also do that. Kramer and I do a lot of this. Kramer is going to go over after this some of the impact, particularly for this area, for us, for the board meeting. But we do economic impact studies all over New Mexico for different, like Eddy County reports. Those are all on our website. So if you want to look at various economic studies, you can look at what we've put together. And I will go ahead, and Kramer is going to take over with the COVID-19 impact.
All right, thanks, Brooke. So these numbers are some figures we've been looking at, trying to figure out which parts of the economy were most impacted by coronavirus, and trying to figure out, you know, are there some programs we can add for specific industries or geographies to help the recovery. So these are definitely really interesting. So I wanted to share these. This first one here shows gross receipts for all of New Mexico. So this is revenues for all the businesses in New Mexico. They're reported monthly by the business, and then they kind of come out on a lag. So we've got data through April, and the darker blue line here is 2020. The lighter blue line is 2019. I think the observations that are pretty interesting. Before coronavirus, the year was looking really good. We'd grown a lot since 2019. And then you see as of March or April, we dropped below where we were last year. So we've had a pretty extreme drop in April. We're still where we were last April, which is pretty interesting. Also, some of the other data that's been coming out does kind of show that April was the bottom in terms of the decline in economic activity. So hopefully that's true. There's some more data I can show that kind of shows that might be happening. This next slide here shows, oh, you've got the slides, Brooke. Yeah, this next slide here shows gross receipts by industry. And so what I looked at here was April 2019 gross receipts, March 2020, and April 2020, so we could get a comparison of the month over month change, and then the year over year in terms of percentage, and then total dollars. So you can see the industry that was hit the hardest in terms of aggregate number was wholesale trade, down 390 million from the prior month. Mining, that includes oil and gas. Utilities, maybe due to probably people working from home, so businesses spending less on utilities, and maybe some people not paying their bill. Retail trade was hit really hard. Manufacturing, professional science, technical services, administrative, healthcare was hit particularly hard. That's true for Doña Ana County as well. And in terms of percentage, it seems like the one that declined the most was arts, entertainment, recreation. The food service actually didn't fall as much as I guess I thought it would. Still pretty dramatic decline there too. Next slide, Brooke. So then this one shows the gross receipts by county. So you can see Doña Ana County here, down 27%. Overall, the whole state was down 16% month over month. Year over year, down only 2%. So again, statewide, the gross receipts grew pretty dramatically. Doña Ana County was hit pretty at minus 20%, so pretty close to average for the state. Again, these numbers are pretty significant. That's 157 million in revenue that the businesses in Doña Ana County had declined from the prior month. Next slide, Brett. So there's kind of a lot of information in these and things to observe. So if you guys have any questions, we can pull them back up. This is the data specifically for Doña Ana County, gross receipts by industry. So the two biggest industries, well, biggest impacts in Doña Ana County were in construction and healthcare. And the healthcare one's pretty interesting, given we're in a pandemic, but the hospital slowed down quite a bit, and you've read about layoffs and things like that. Probably the next biggest impacts in retail trade and food services, looks like, and then arts, entertainment, and recreation down 85%. That's not as big of an industry, but that decline is very dramatic. Next slide. And then this one shows, again, that data that I had before was through April. It was hopefully the bottom. This shows the employment numbers from Bureau of Labor Services, and this data is through May. So you can see there's 75,000 non-farm employees in Las Cruces. So this is for Las Cruces instead of Doña Ana County in March, and then it declined to 66,000. So 8,000 jobs lost from March to April, and then May brought back 1,000 jobs in the preliminary estimate. And on a national level, the June data is out, and that shows job growth as well. So hopefully that trend does come back, and that really was the bottom in terms of employment. I think that's all the slides we had here, but again, lots of information in there as far as which industries had been impacted and counties and things like that. So we'll continue to monitor that, and hopefully we'll be putting out more research on that.
And then when we can also come back and present data in a month or two if there's changes or comparison to previous year changes in how we're doing. But there's a few more slides on here that I would like to go over. Another aspect of the Arrowhead Center is that we have Arrowhead Park, which is a 200+ acre space that goes from between the two freeways of the 10 and the 25. So at the Arrowhead Park, we're actually building a new building. And
can you answer that? I can't answer. There's not a phone here.
Okay. And then what we do there is we provide office spaces for businesses. They don't necessarily have to be students. Anybody can get some affordable office spaces if they're needing it. If they do, there is also more business space that is larger than office space. We offer students a collaborative space where they can meet with their clients and share it for a very small fee. The office spaces are based on square footage, and they're pretty, they're lower than the rest of the city. They get to use our conference rooms, and they get to use like our coffee machines, and there's some other aspects that you get. So we promote businesses to use this area, and we also promote businesses like we have Spaceport and different tech businesses that have some buildings there. And Wayne Savage runs this, and he's promoting more businesses such as film to collaborate and use this area. So we are just rapidly growing with innovation space, film, and then small businesses using the park. There's a COVID recovery part on here. City of Las Cruces is funding Las Cruces-based business accelerator, and this will, I actually have a slide on this, and I'm going to go more into that with all of you since it directly benefits our community. So I will re-bring that up in a minute. Something that we offer that I mentioned before were 5-week-long sprints, which are business accelerators across the state. It was one of the dots on that map. So we focus on the ecosystem enhancement. It's a proven programming, and there's a support network. Usually when we just do our regular before COVID, because we've pivoted ourselves, we would address things like, what is your client need, and going out and meeting your client and doing customer discovery interviews and making sure that your business is providing a product market fit. So that was something that we actually do. We took that model from the National Science Foundation's I-Core, which Kramer and I teach our Aggie I-Core, and students across the state can join that, which is for deep tech businesses. But we took that model and opened it up for the community so that small businesses could join it and do something similar to find out how they can increase their revenue, hopefully increase job creation, do that, and how they can meet the market needs and more efficient use of their money. So that was our proven programming and our support network. We also provide mentoring through this. Some of these sprints are identified in an industry, such as our ag sprint. Our ag sprint just had everybody who had a business in agriculture. It could have been anything from farming to, we have like some very unique farming, backyard farms, soil, and even with that one in particular, she is growing very large hemp plants. They're like 5 feet long, tall or something. So we have people with focus on ag, and that could be also cattle. So they encouraging you to apply to Ag Sprint if they might be within this industry, because they will join a team that is similar to them and learn from each other. And the mentoring aspect on that is we do weekly one-on-one mentoring, and we do that for 4 months after the 5-week sprint. And they present at the Farm and Ranch Museum for a pitch competition for $20,000, usually in October. We may not be doing that in person this year. We may do it virtually, but we won't stop doing it. And I can answer more questions, or at the end is our emails if you have more questions on that sprint. But this is the one why I kind of jumped over it, because we did pivot. What happened, and I mentioned this in another board meeting, was that our biz sprint, which was for any business, not like ag or health or deep tech, it was any small business could apply. And when the stay-at-home order occurred, we had 258 applicants across the state. And we're used to having, I guess it could be 28 to 40. So we tried to quickly increase capacity to, we usually have about 15 people, like teams, businesses per sprint. So we tried to increase our capacity to meet as many needs as possible. But we had only had 3 teams selected from Las Cruces. And so Griselda and the Las Cruces Economic Development Department, along with David Maesta, has now formed a partnership with our Airhead Center to have a COVID-19 solution sprint just for businesses in the city of Las Cruces. What we did was we basically, with the ones across the state, piloted a new way to reach their needs. By identifying what their needs were through COVID, we were able to bring in expertise in those areas to present and help them become more e-commerce focused, or how they could do curbside. And so we found out what their needs were. And so that's like us saying, you find out what your customer needs are. We did. a product market fit, and we actually changed our biz sprint to a COVID-19 solution sprint. We will be having 2 with our partnership with the city. One of them is going to start on August 12th. And the total, I think we're probably going to do the normal 15 teams in it, and the applications on our website. So if you know anybody that's interested, the application closes on July 27th. So we're going to have a press release out later today. So you should see that in the newspaper. But I wanted to give you some information in case there's anybody out there who wants to know more about how this works. We have a regular curriculum that we did before. We have that now recorded, so they can watch it anytime that they have time to watch the recorded curriculum. It is going to be, in a difference in the slide that you received, I just highlighted 8 weeks because we decided to expand it to 3 more weeks. We are having a 3-week session where they meet, all of these, they meet 2 hours a week online. So it's 1 day a week for 2 hours online. We expanded to 3 more weeks due to the city's need for more training on e-commerce. We are looking at most of the businesses being small, family-owned, traditional businesses, and ones that have like on the statistics that we just saw, the data that have been highly impacted. And on this, we are, I'll just say a couple points. They're going to watch the videos of the teaching that we used to do, that we still do with the other ones, but on the 2-hour time, they're going to actually have an expert in a field come in and present on something like, I don't know, cash flow or different types of markets. And we are going to base those presenters on the applicants and what they need. They also will get one-on-one mentoring for 30 minutes a week, but they don't have to do that. It's optional. Most of the biz sprint participants chose to do that. And at the end of the 8 weeks, we are going to have a report for the business to show what we found over the 8 weeks with a list of resources and links that can continue to help them. And they will always get our services after that. They're in Arrowhead and they're our clients.
Ms. Montgomery, really quick, we are going on the 11:30 mark. If we can start wrapping up.
Okay. So
okay, thank you.
Almost done with the slides. I won't show this video, but something else that we do is we're making support local videos. So if you want to make a video of your business, we are pushing these videos out on social media and on our website. And then online resources, you can also contact Kramer and I to see what they are, but we do have virtual consultations. Everything that we provide is provided virtually. All of the accelerators, all of our classes, all of our training programs are all virtual. And we have access to local, state, and federal resources, which we can explain more about the grants that are out there. And that was pretty much it. So on here is my email and Kramer's email. If you're interested to know more, please write those emails down and email us, and we will find out what, how we can help you with next steps on your business needs. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing. I'll leave it up for a second if you want, in case someone's writing it down. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Wingham and Ms. Montgomery. That was a great presentation. I really do appreciate it. And with that being said, I am going to open up with questions from the board, but I do have a couple thoughts really quick if you guys can help me out with that, as we are trying to stimulate the Las Cruces economy and get action items out of this committee. So you did mention, and the thing that I took out of it was the biz spirit was something that definitely was more COVID related right now that you guys are kind of doing. But there was only a very few amount of applicants from Las Cruces that was chosen. Is that something that we can increase with funding, or is that something that we can do with the city council's help? Since that sounds like a really good thing for this committee to be focusing on, is it a funding issue or is it a selection issue?
Griselda is on here. They did fund 2 sprints, one in August, and the next one will be sometime in October, tentatively for starting a date. But each sprint only has about 15 businesses, so that'd be 30. I'll let Griselda go ahead and speak on that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Montgomery and Dr. Winningham. This is Griselda Martinez for the record. Mr. Chair, currently we have funded 30 participants split into 2 cohorts. And the reason behind that was the funding limitation from the Economic Development Department's perspective. So a recommendation that this board could do could be to increase that available funding for the purposes of additional participants. And that would be something that we could further explore with Arrowhead Center, and also be cognizant of their capacity as well. But I believe in my conversations with Kathy Hansen, the director for the center, that she's able to adapt and provide the services as we plan for more participants.
Thank you for that. So then it does sound like it's a funding issue, and if they're willing, I think that's something that we should definitely be looking at as a board, is maybe putting forth a recommendation to City Council to say, hey, this program has limited funds, but it is directly affecting the business community with COVID-related issues, and it is a 5-week program, I believe. I'm pulling up the slide right now. Okay, so it is a 5-week program, you stated. Go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't raise my hand. Brooke Montgomery for record. I had sent that to you, but actually for the COVID for Las Cruces, it was funded for 8 weeks because we added 3 weeks of e-commerce on there.
Okay. So then with that being said, I think this might be a really good action item for the board as a whole to start looking at if this is something that we can definitely go through. I do have a question about that accelerator program. So it is 3 weeks of e-commerce. So if there was additional funding, would that be something that we could look at? Because not every business has an e-commerce side. So that might be something that we could do within, do another group of 2 and have 2 directions with that maybe. I mean, this is totally your all's ballgame. This is not mine at all, but just kind of thinking about the time limitations as we go forth. But I definitely think providing more funding for this through the city to get more businesses involved. This is the first I'm hearing of it. So I'm really excited by this because it's something that I think is really usable. Griselda, you do have your hand up though.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the type of training that Arrowhead was providing was 5 weeks, and with the shifting to the digital world, what they did and was adding the 3 weeks that would allow businesses to explore additional markets, and that would be the e-commerce component. For the discussions that we have had and the interest that we saw from the business community here in Las Cruces, they had 43 applicants in the statewide application that Arrowhead had, and only 3 were able to be admitted because of capacity. So that's how the genesis of the conversation of Las Cruces focus. And so based on those applications, we have identified 2 different areas of focus. One with the service type of business, which is usually not something that participates in business accelerators. And then the other option is just the more mom and pop, that they can establish a website, that they can establish channels of distribution that they haven't considered yet. Another big component was that before this statewide group participated, the cohorts were, I believe, 20 or 25. Arrowhead has decreased the size of the cohort to be able to have more of the one-on-one coaching, which they found to be most crucial for business owners to have the opportunity to have that more customized attention and personalized one-on-one conversation to be adapted to their needs. So we could definitely, if the recommendation from the board would be to have additional funding for more targeted efforts, we could definitely work with Arrowhead Center to craft other type of curriculum that may be more adaptable and maybe a shorter
period.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Mr. Cohen, you do have your hand raised, sir.
Thank you, Doug Cowan. Do we have any stats on success or any models that could be presented to show how that program has stimulated the economy, even if it was before COVID, so we could see how well it impacts the economy and then substantiate the idea of adding more funding to it?
Yeah, there's some data on that. We've been running that program since I think 2017 with funding from New Mexico Gas Co. And so that's about 10 cohorts of 75 teams. And over those 3 years, on average, each one of those ventures created 2 to 3 direct jobs. So then that leads to, a total impact of about 4 to 5 jobs when you do the economic impact analysis. And on average, each team raised about $20,000 in follow-on funding. So the research that they get, because the program is all about market research, they talk to their customers, they get insights, and that puts them in a position to raise follow-on funding and expand. And so there's a lot of value they get out of the program in terms of access to resources, but the insights that they get doing that customer research are really, really valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's huge for a small business, especially someone that is just starting out. Ms. Montgomery.
Ms. Brooke Montgomery for record, just to add to what Kramer was saying, we can send an email to the board with a document on the success and the metrics that we have so that you can have something tangible to see. And kind of what you were saying, Chris, about the sprint with the e-commerce, I think that was something that was asked a lot that the city had noticed. But if we do our, maybe ask them, do a survey again, we may be able to go back to the 5-week, or we could do an 8-week, or do like something specific that we see as a new need. So maybe with something coming out, there's a new need on training and we could provide that. We're pretty flexible because we have such a wide range of advisors on that advisory network who can actually come in and speak. So we have a selection of people who can help the businesses each week.
Yeah, and the program with the market research component, you can add a lot of things onto that. So we do it for specific industries, or, that's part of the reason we're doing the research on which industries are impacted to see, is there a way to tailor the program or maybe give preference to industries that have been impacted the most with that. So it's flexible in terms of meeting it, various goals. But the core of that program with the market research is just really impactful for the businesses.
Awesome. I think this is a great direction that we can take this forward to make the next action. If there's any other questions, please do raise your hand, folks. And then I do really quick, I'm sorry, guys, I know this is your part of the discussion, but Ms. Lopez, if you're still on, if you could unmute really quick. Are you still there, Ms. Lopez? There
I am.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So really quick, just because we are looking for action items that we can present to the city council from this board. And I know that we didn't really come up with any action items for what we can do in conjunction with workforce. But I was making some notes and I definitely wanted to see really quick where I had this in the notes. Is there any kind of thoughts that we could work with you all in a partnership with the city of Las Cruces that we could put forth? Whether, I was really interested in the training side of things. And I did bring that up a little bit. So is there something that you can think of on your side that we could partner with you on that would definitely help the Las Cruces workforce, as well as, maybe with retraining of displaced workers or anything like that? Is there something that you can think of that would help us make some decisions here?
Well, as you know, Griselda has been working on the EDA grant, and I have been attending those meetings as well. And that's a great starting point because it's helping us not only develop what we could potentially do with that particular grant, in conjunction with what the workforce has available, but it's also helping us really shape some ideas for other initiatives. And I've had this discussion with Griselda before. I think that, last year we actually expended all 3 million of our on-the-job training dollars, and needed to ask the board for more money. And so we know that there's a need. We know that we can expand on that, and we can help more people, especially for the alternative licensure program. That's where we really got put in a jam, was the alternative licensure program, and then also the agricultural thing that they were doing at NMSU. We really did want to be able to say, yeah, get 30 people and we'll just fund them. And it was like, I think it was going to be 2,000, like 2,800 or something per student. And that was like room and board, 40 hours of training, 6 certificates, boom, in 1 week. And they were working together with State Farm and, not State Farm, what is it? Farm Bureau and other agricultural players. So there were like jobs being lined up. It was going to be a great program. And then COVID just came and poo-pooed all over it. So we plan to pick that back up. We do. The board has already said, let's put some money aside. We want to pick that up. But there are plenty of initiatives like that if I could be a hero, if I could be a superhero, and I could go and partner with Community Action Agency, if I could go and partner with them when they have projects going on and they're like, man, we wish that you could just say yes and just give us what we need to financially support this training or whatever. Those would be the kinds of projects that would be really cool, if just to even say, okay, we're willing to say yes to collaborate. We don't know on what right now, but we're saying yes, we want to hear it. That would be a start, because the next time we have an agency, a school, or a business say, this is what we'd like to do, we need the training and we need the finances. And then if we could come together and figure out how we could pull those resources together to get it done, that would be awesome.
I'm there with you. Board members, do we have any ideas of what actionable items we can do with these 2 great organizations that we could go forth?
Well, Griselda, have you presented the EDA ideas to this board yet?
Mr. Chair, Griselda Martinez for the record. Darlene, thank you very much for your presentation. No, we have not covered that since it's still in the works, but a little bit of background for everybody here on this call and people listening. We started a conversation related to workforce development opportunities, first through the Workforce Talent Collaborative, which is a community-based meeting that we have every month, and it's form of just different organizations from NMSU to Las Cruces Public School, the city, and others, including employers. And the Economic Development Administration CARES Act made funding available for efforts to alleviate the negative impact of the current situation. And we've been having conversations on how we can come together as a community, not just the city alone, but in partnership with Workforce Connections, Workforce Solutions, Doña Ana Community College, and Community Action Agency. Those are the ones that we have been talking to. And first identifying the core problem to the more severe impact to the displaced workers in our community. And then from there, we moved into discussing possible ways to address that through this partnership. And so as we speak, our grants team is working on identifying possible strategies, leveraging from the discussion that we have had. We've had 2 of them, very rich discussions, and then defining a scope of work that we can discuss with the regional EDA representative, and then get more feedback on whether or not that's a program that they would be interested in funding. Darlene, however, since it is a grant application, it would be it will have to follow the process. The ability that it's upon us here through the board, it's a more timely implementation of any initiatives. And I think that's where the board chair is coming from on possible opportunities that can be implemented faster.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So along those lines, I know that we definitely need to do some work on understanding the LEAP program for the teachers. So that might be something, because I had someone reach out to me yesterday, and I know that we have certain limitations, unfortunately, with these federal dollars. We have a lot of limitations. You know, they have to have proved that they have exhausted all other ways of getting money. They have to have applied for FAFSA, got their denial, or got, you know, the notification that they're getting less than what their need is. They also have to prove that the school doesn't have any Title I funding. And that's where we get stuck, is that a lot of the schools do have Title I funding. And so they can't say that. So we get in a pickle. And I think that we are in a process somewhere of trying to get over that so that we can make an exception, because we're in a crisis, but we're not there yet. And so that might be somewhere where the city could help us to be able to serve those people.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about. I really do. Ms. Debbie Moore.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Debbie Moore, Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce. My comments, I think, are I want to caution this board that we complement programs out there, not duplicate them. So what I'm kind of hearing in the discussion today, and have heard it on the board, is we've talked about business development, business assistance. We've talked about workforce development, workforce assistance. And I think an actionable item would be, Mr. Chair, is that we kind of ask the city council to support some of these that are already in place. I.e., we've got SBDC West that are actually helping them, i.e. businesses navigate their new recovery, what they look like, doing many, providing many training and resources that, Darlene, that was an excellent presentation on what Workforce is doing and Workforce Collaborative. So I think there's some pieces in place, both for the employer, the business community, and the employee, that one of our action items could be have the city support those things in place. And obviously Griselda and her team is doing a good job of trying to navigate where the role in the city is in that regard. And then I think maybe the next piece of this would be specifically for the city, is there some ordinances that can be either deferred, either be relooked at as part of a true action item that maybe the city can look at moving forward that can also help business. And my last remark, Mr. Chair, is that I just heard a lot about business. We've heard a little bit about workforce as it pertains today to the employee, but I think we also need to go back to the inclusive economic development term that we've heard occasionally, is that how we support the city in what they've already done and give them action items moving further. That's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that. Sorry, I appreciate that, Debbie. I really do think that it is going to be about supporting the current ones. And that's why I do like, I don't know, Debbie, if we're on the same page with this, but the Biz Sprint I do like because it is a current one and they have catered it to COVID. If you're on the same page with me, Debbie, on that, please do let me know, because I would like to start getting something rolling with that for sure.
Mr. Chair, yes, I would be on the same page with that. I think that's one piece of the puzzle that's out there right now that are very directly tied to COVID. In fact, while we were on the call, I've gotten some texts about a couple more programs I've been made aware of that can possibly have grants. So yes, I'm on board with that. But again, I'm not asking for the city to reinvent these wheels. I'm asking the city council to embrace and partner with all of us who are trying to help the community.
Perfect, thank you. Also, just a quick question, then we'll go to Mr. Miller and then Mr. Cohen as well. With Arrowhead, I know of the Hunt Institute out of UTEP a lot, and I know what they do. Do you guys partner with them at all? And is there any programs that they've been doing that mimic what you all are doing, or is there any work between the two that's going on right now?
Yeah, probably the best partnership we have right now is our Studio G program, which is for student entrepreneurs. That one just opened up at UTEP. We also have a Hunt Center at Arrowhead Center, and so we've got support from the Hunts as well. And so we've cross-promoted our I-Corps programs, the Hunt sponsorship program. There's some business competitions out of UTEP that are opening up. But I think what's really exciting about that partnership, UTEP's done a great job with our Studio G program. It just opened up down there this spring, and they've already had almost 100 ventures join just in the last 4 months. So yeah, really good partnerships there, and we're looking forward to being able to share programs. And basically what that does is it just creates more opportunities for student entrepreneurs in both schools.
Wonderful, thank you. I appreciate that knowledge. Mr. Miller.
George Miller for the record. Yes, I think we've heard some wonderful ideas of specific programs that are out there. I'd like to put this thing back into an overall, maybe a framework. I don't want to give the city council a shotgun approach to some of the ideas, some pieces that might work. It's better to put something, I would think, into a framework. That's where we were coming from with this inclusive economic recovery. And that occurs when, and that some of the things that have been mentioned here contribute to that. That provides opportunity for all residents, and especially historically excluded populations, to benefit and contribute to the economic prosperity. And so that's, we're still hearing a lot of things for businesses. Some of the things we've talked about today will affect those kind of people. And so we're still missing some, I think, overall framework to present this to the council. That, yeah, there's some business programs that we think have potential, but there's other kinds of things that probably we need to address. And I think that the board asked me last time to kind of look into some of those things that for an inclusive recovery model might be. And so I've got some of those ideas, and we can I would like to put that on the agenda for next time if we don't have time this time to do that. Does that make sense? What there's still
yes.
Go ahead. Okay, with an economic crisis, then what happens is that these certain populations get driven down even further into poverty or exclusion. And if you don't have programs that actually address those kind of people, it's gonna, there's several cities that have embraced this. Los Angeles, I think, Tampa, or Orlando, and Nashville. And when Nashville did, they've been won awards for their economic development, and they've really got to be one of the places that people desire to live. But they still are having problems with their poverty and all the other issues that really can drain the economic drivers for the city. And so they've had to go back and remodel that, and they've embraced this inclusive model. And so there's some things that I think we'll still miss the board if we don't kind of put a framework that says, do we have all the voices? And I like the EDA approach. I think I've heard that was, at least you're trying to get a community perspective. And so this helps, if we can do more of that, I think, and that's included in this kind of model, I think.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. It's Doug Cowan. I've got two things maybe we could look at to take action on. One of them could be, there was a lot of information, good information given today from two different agencies, of which much of that information I had no idea was out there. And, you know, I'm pretty active in things going on in our community. I'm wondering if something that couldn't be done is some type of directory or a liaison situation where somebody could go to a site or make a phone call and get a list of these different programs and who is it that we contact in order to engage in these programs. I think there's a lot of help out there that already exists. We don't need to reinvent it. we don't even need to suggest that it exists because it's already in operation. We just need to figure out how to help people find it and to be more engaged with it. And so if we could come up with an action to either create a directory or some type of liaison in the city's office where they would be able to put all this information together in one spot and then help people find that information. The second thing I think we ought to take action on is Ms. Moore has already mentioned it, and perhaps I could even make an motion on it, and that is to ask the city council to re-examine some of the mandates, just re-examine them, take another look at the impact it's having and it can have, and so forth.
Thank you for that. Ms. Moore, you do have your hand raised.
So just a point of clarification, Debbie Moore, Greater Las Cruces Chamber. Mr. Cowan, I'm not talking about specific mandates for COVID. I was referring to long-term potential ordinances that could possibly help us as they recover. So I wasn't particularly talking, if that's what you're talking about, the mandates, just for point of clarification. I would, Mr. Chair, I think I agree. I totally agree with Mr. Miller. I've seen several examples of recovery plans for cities, the indexes that have topics. Perhaps staff could research some of these, and I'd be happy to forward some of them to staff to kind of give us a framework of topics that we can fill in the blanks, that we can then go forward as, because I believe, the reason I was so pro Safe Promise is I know the atmosphere we're living in right now, and we need that cohesive grassroots. But I totally agree with you, Mr. Miller, that a piecemeal approach is not what needs to be. We need to figure out what our index is, how we're going to fill in the blanks with all that, and how partnerships work in that. And so I think that's a really good idea. And Mr. Chair, I would just ask staff, perhaps they can get some ideas. I can certainly forward some ideas that I've seen. And Mr. Miller, obviously you can have some too. There's lots of recovery plans out there with good, impactful indexes that we can fill in and make it our own. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Harris.
All right, I'll be quick since it is already noon. So when we are trying to fill in the blanks for recovery plans and all this, I think that it's also important for us to maybe hear from some of the state public health people. And, you know, we can suggest safe promises and recovery plans all we want, but one thing that I think we need to know is what are reasonable, you know, actions that people can take, and specifically we have just the only data that we really have to go on as a public is case counts that are increasing day to day, and so I think it would be really good to know why, and if they've done any contact tracing, you know, where are people getting sick, etc. Because, you know, we can make these recommendations and say, oh, we should support restaurants or we should support bars or whatever, but you know, without the underlying data to make those decisions, I think we might be shooting in the dark a bit. So something to talk about for future, if we can find someone who might be able to elucidate those points for us.
Wonderful. Thank you for those comments. As it's 12 o'clock, we need to start moving on and getting some concrete ideas. I know that Mr. Miller, this part of the meeting right now is still going over what we were given and presented today. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns about the two presentations that we had today from Arrowhead and also from Workforce? As I see no one's hands going up or any other kind of questions or comments for these individuals, once again, I want to say thank you for coming on today. I really do appreciate the information that we were given. I think it was just things that I didn't even know existed in our community, resources and such. And I really do say thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part of the meeting, and hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly because we all have jobs that we have to get to. So moving on, we're going to get into future topic discussions. We have had a lot of conversations about what's going on and where we want to go. Mr. Miller, we did talk about finding someone. Did you find that individual that can present to us on this topic?
I'm not an expert. I have some slides that kind of have some general frameworks for what an inclusive recovery program could be, economic recovery, but the city may have somebody more with expertise. I would ask that there's a person at Brookings Institute that's kind of helping to develop this across the country. There's expertise, and I would approach someone from one of the cities that's doing it already, that maybe they could just do a 20-minute presentation. So I would try, if that's okay with the board, I would reach out to those people. Otherwise, we can do it internally, I think. It seems like there's expertise maybe in the city or here. So for next week, I would put at least the topic on for discussion, either have someone with expertise come in, or at least what the city knows already. Or I could bring some slides. I already have some prepared.
Okay, so you're asking the city staff to find people to present on this, or you have slides, is that correct?
Yes, or I can invite them in if they prefer, either way.
Ms. Martinez, you do have your hand raised, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, we can coordinate with Mr. Miller offline and make sure that we're collaborating on the best option. I'm not aware of somebody within the city with the level of expertise of the Brookings Institute, but we can definitely reach out to them together and find out what the best option may be for a presentation or more materials.
Wonderful. I think that is a great idea. Let's go ahead and get that done, as you know, we are needing to start talking about those things. So that was one, that was one thing that we have an idea for a discussion item. So with that being said, we would need a motion to have that on the agenda for the next meeting to be a discussion item. And then also, if there's anything else that we need to talk to, we've already sent one thing to the city council as a board. So that is good, but we need to, you know, these things are taking 2 to 3 weeks to get in front of the city council. So there needs to be some actions being taken, in my honest opinion, with this board. Anyone else?
Well, maybe it would be a good idea if on the next meeting, I will, between now and then, try to get as much information as I can on the LEAP, our alternative licensure, and see to get some concrete information on where the gap is between what we can do and what's stopping us from serving some folks. And then maybe at that point, when we really can't identify firmly where the lack is, then we can present that as a basis for how the city might be able to assist us in reaching more folks.
Wonderful. That sounds amazing. I would definitely appreciate that more than you know. So we have 2 great discussion items that we're going to revisit to try to come up with a plan here. So we need to definitely be taking a look at that. Ms. Sharon Thomas, yes, ma'am.
I've read some articles about cities who are using their GIS staff, Global Information System staff, to map where all the businesses are that are open and what kind of services they're offering, and they just keep updating it all the time so that it's easy to go to the city and be able to look on the map where the businesses are and what, you know, whether they're doing takeout, how to get in touch with them, how to help all the businesses very easily and quickly. And don't know if the GIS staff at the city could do that, but I suspect they could.
Okay, we have another idea to get more so a city directory going, which I believe Mr. Cohen referred to as well. So we have that on the table as a possible topic or actionable item that we bring forward. Any other items that we could think of that? Oh, I am being told that Google Maps actually has that program in place for what is open and what services they offer. So that might be a double we can look at in the time being and see if there's anything there that is.
So that's something the city could use, is that Google program, right?
Yeah, definitely. Miss Montgomery.
When you mean Google Maps, do you mean when we're like looking up the business? I know I've looked up several and they say the wrong hours. Like it hasn't, I don't know who, and I just don't know if it was up to date or if you're talking about the same thing I was looking at.
To speak to that, because I've been at work every day, all day long, except for right now. I've actually gotten a lot of automated calls from Google asking me to update through voice recognition what is going on at the business. So they're asking me questions like what services I have and all this stuff that cater to the business, and then they're going in and updating your Google profile. So I know that is something that they are on top of and doing, because I've gotten 18 phone calls in the last 2 weeks based off of Google's automated voice assistant. So I do know that they are doing that. So that is one thing. Mr. Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing that I want to provide some extra information with regards to the GIS department. Well, it's not a department, but the unit within the cities. So the city, the only thing that I would think of that is that we do have geolocalization for businesses. However, we do not know, or we do not have information of necessarily what are the hours of operation that they may have. There's about 3,000 businesses in the city, so that would imply us calling 3,000 different individuals to see what are the hours in which it is open. Some of them may answer, some of them may not necessarily want to speak to the city. So I think that it is and of course I'm not part of the GIS department, but I think it would be a lengthy process to provide some of this. However, if you consider that this is worth the time, considering we can definitely look into that. I do consider that this involves a full-on research project. So I just wanted to have that in consideration with regards to this.
So I just want to say that in Seattle, the GIS department put out an application for businesses to send in their information to be part of this program, and they got 300 right away, and the next week they got 300 more. So it's spread and it's been really popular. However, if Google's already doing this kind of work, then it might be better to just encourage our local businesses to be part of the Google program and have a link to that from the city website. There are a couple different ways of looking at it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm actually playing with Google as we talk, and it kind of does what we're looking for. We'll just have to look and see if it expands in the near future. Mr. Cohen, you do have your hand raised, sir.
Thank you, Doug Cowan. When I mentioned the director, I wasn't really talking about what businesses are open and such. What I was talking about was the programs that we heard from today. They have a lot of information. There's a lot of pieces to their programs that I didn't even know existed. And I'm certain there's a lot of employers and potential employees. They don't even know where to start. And if there was like a one-stop shop where they could get into a directory or make a phone call, and then that information could be disseminated, you know, you need to call this agency, this is their program, or they can read about it, whatever. But I'm just thinking somehow or another, put together a directory of some sort where people can find these very specific helpful programs.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Harris, before we get to you, I believe Ms. Martinez has her hand raised. And I also just want to point out, if we do go to the Las Cruces website and we go under, there's a whole resources for small business and workers section that kind of does this exact same. Okay, Griselda's shaking her head. Yes, like this is what she was going to say. But there is this whole section where it goes over every single possible thing, and they also do updates. So it's also like a blog type of style. So like the last thing that they posted was NMSU's Arrowhead Center partners with the city of Las Cruces to spotlight local business. And then it goes through the link. And then also all the links are there for the chambers, for the IEDC, for the SBDC, Workforce Solutions, Buy Local, New Mexico Economic Development Department, and all that kind of stuff. But Griselda, if you want to speak to that, because I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Mr. Chair, Griselda Martinez for the record. Yes, I wanted to point the board to what you just mentioned online, as well as with the e-blast system that we have implemented when this whole situation started. We have been featuring partners in the community where we send information to businesses highlighting the different services available for them. So basically a little snapshot of what we heard today has been going out to all 3,000 businesses for the last 2 weeks.
Perfect, thank you. So with that being said, maybe that's something that we can highlight as a funding issue for marketing and do something with that to highlight the fact that that has already been done by the economics side of the city. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Michael Harris. I just kind of wanted to maybe circle back to the things that we wanted to put as discussion items for next week. I see 3 things: funding for Arrowhead sprints, looking at the various recovery plans from other cities that might, you know, be available to fill in the blanks, and then a presentation about what inclusive recovery means. And I suppose the only other, the 4th one that I would add to next meeting, or maybe the meeting after, would be, you know, getting some input from public health officials that we haven't heard yet. And so anyway, I just had written those things in my notes. I wanted to make sure that everyone else was on the same page, that those were the discussion topics that we might be talking about next time.
Thank you for that point of clarification. And also with the whole discussion on like the directory of resources, I'm on the Greater Chamber of Las Cruces' website as well, and they have a fantastic set of information there as well that can help you out with what they have available and other services throughout different organizations within the Southwest region that gears towards economic development, as well as anything like that. So that is also another resource, and it's also linked on the city's website. So we can definitely check that box and maybe look at more funding ways or more ways to get that out into the public realm. With that being said, Mr. Harris, thank you so much for bringing that point of clarification to the board. So let's go ahead and get some to put discussion items on the next agenda for this. It sounds like we have 3, and if Mr. Harris, if you want to take it away.
Sure, Michael Harris, I would motion to put those 3 items on the discussion items for next week.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to bring those 3 discussion items. It looks like inclusive economic, Mr. Miller, if you can help me out here, inclusive economic
recovery.
Okay, inclusive economic recovery, discussion item number 1. Discussion item number 2 is going to be from Ms. Lopez to highlight what we can do in conjunction with the city with those programs. And then discussion item number 3 is going to be if we can get someone from the health side of things to present to us. And I would really like it to be someone that is accredited and official and well-versed in what's going on at the state level of COVID, and not just, unfortunately, someone that's not well-versed, because that's misinformation. And I don't want our board to be given misinformation on COVID, because that is not helping anyone right now. So with those 3 things being said, we have a motion, a second, discussion. Raise your hand if you have any. Seeing none. Mr. Francisco, if you will please do a roll call vote to get these discussion items on, because I'm very late for work.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. This is on the motion to put the 3 discussion items that were just discussed for future discussion on the July 16th meeting. Mr. Michael Harris.
Yes.
Mr. George Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Sharon Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Brooke Montgomery.
Yes.
Ms. Veronica Archuleta. I think she's absent. Mr. Ron Fitzherbert.
Yes.
Mr. Doc Cowan.
Yes.
I think Ms. Jane Bloom. I think she's absent. Ms. Jolene Martinez. I think she's absent. Ms. Debbie Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion does pass. We have our 3 discussion items, pending what information we can get in the meantime. With that being said, anyone motion for adjournment?
So moved, Ron Fitzherbert.
Thank you so much. Meeting adjourned. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.